There's the pass to Leitner. Puts it up. Yes!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Cameron Chronicles. I am your host, Max Rego. We are joined by, he's making his triumphant return to the podcast, Mr. Jake Piazza, our sports editor. How are we doing, Jake?
Happy to be here as always.
Thanks for coming in. We got three other men's basketball beats. We got Micah, Hurewitz, Sasha Richie, and Jonathan Levitan. Guys, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for joining, guys, and thanks for tuning in, everyone. So, yeah, the time has come. Duke UNC Part 1 is 2 days away. The first Duke UNC game, obviously, of Coach K's last year, and Hubert Davis's first entry into the rivalry as a head coach, as a first-year head coach. So lot to get to. Obviously, this is probably one of our favorite podcasts we'll do all year. I was really excited for this one, but I think just a rundown of some some of the storylines coming in. I mean, I think both of these teams are starting to really play some of their best ball of the year, especially on Carolina's side. UNC, kind of was in a weird spot. I think a couple weeks ago, they were on the bubble of the NCAA tournament. They still kind of are. They still need to get that quality win. Duke is one of their better. This Saturday was one of their better chances, considering it's at home and considering how they typically play above their. Oftentimes they play above their actual potential in this game just because of the magnitude of it. But yeah, it'll be an interesting game. We'll get to kind of our score picks and matchups to watch for later, because it's besides the fact that it's Duke UNC and it's a great game every year, there are some really interesting things in my opinion that at least make this a compelling basketball game. So, but first we kind of want to start off with some a little blast from the past, if you will. Obviously, not all of us were, watched this rivalry intently before. I mean, not all of us, had any relation to Duke before coming here. I certainly didn't. I watched it as just a college basketball fan, but I really had no dog in the fight. But there's still games that stand out in the past, right? I mean, from the top of mind, I remember Zion's first and last game in the rivalry. At least, he played for 20 seconds in the first game before nuking his shoe. And then he came back in the ACC tournament. Some games from the 90s, the Coach K's 500th win stand out. But Micah, I think you had a couple games that came to mind for you of past Duke UNC games. You want to fire away on that?
Yeah, I think one for me was, obviously it wasn't one of Duke's greatest years, but it was one of the finest Duke UNC matchups in the last 5-10 years. It was the 2016 game at the Dean Dome. Duke was ranked number 20. Carolina was number 5. I remember the game started off as just a complete slugfest down low in the paint for Carolina. They were getting every offensive rebound, got a bit of a lead late, and then Duke was just climbing back the last 6-7 minutes of the second half. Some big shots from Brandon Ingram and a great defensive stop from Duke's defense. Derek Thornton, Grayson Allen leading the charge in that one.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I remember that game vividly. It's a funny story. I was here in North Carolina 3 days before that game. I vividly remember I came on a college tour with my dad, and we went to a Duke basketball game and a UNC basketball game over back-to-back days. We went to Duke versus Virginia. Grayson Allen hit a buzzer beater to win for Duke. Many people still argue about whether that was a travel to this day. And then we went to a UNC game the day after, and I believe it was against Pittsburgh. I think UNC made the Final Four that year. They won pretty handily from what I remember. And then a couple days later, I remember the two teams played, and UNC was clearly the better team throughout the season, and Duke just kind of found lightning in a bottle that one night. For me, at least, I think when I was a kid, one of the games that I really love always watching the highlights of, even when I had no affiliation to Duke, is the 2011 game in Cameron. Duke was down by, I believe, 14 at the half. Nolan Smith and Seth Curry went bananas in the second half. No Kyrie Irving. He was obviously still injured that year. Duke just roared back. Both teams were top 25, obviously. Duke just kind of blitzed back into the game and ended up winning, down the stretch. But I think just one of the things that kind of stands out is how just certain players, everything just is bigger in this game. I mean, everything is amplified. A lot of these guys' best college performance is against UNC for Duke, and a lot of the guys on UNC, their best performances are their best performances are against the opposition. I almost got tongue-tied there, but yeah, I mean, it's impressive how these guys rise to the occasion, and the players really make it. I mean, the coaches have obviously been a huge part, but all the players that have just been involved with me, you go down the list, you got Vince Carter, Michael Jordan, Christian Laettner, Grant Hill, Zion, JJ Redick, James Worthy. I mean, that's it's basketball royalty, and with the coaches too. I mean, Coach K, Dean, Roy Williams. We'll see with Hubert and John Shire. I just think all these games are so cool to just look back on. Do you guys have any kind of come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of in the camp of not having any attachment to the rivalry until I came here for school. Growing up, I was a Texas football girl, but I was recently perusing the archives, and I look back on that first game in the series in 2011 and think, God, that must have been insane to watch live. Imagine being there. It's Nolan Smith has a career game in the second largest second half comeback in program history. They come back to win, 18 seconds left, he slams in a dunk, is sigh of relief, exclamation mark, what have you. I can't imagine that there's many better college basketball games, period.
Jonathan, any comes to mind?
One that I personally enjoyed a lot, probably my most memorable, that I won't call my favorite. I do remember watching one from an emergency room, my broken leg, where Duke got blown out pretty handily.
Jesus.
But my personal favorite, was Duke in 2015. I loved that Duke team: Winslow, Okafor, Cook, Jones, and I think the most fun part of that team was that you didn't know who was going to get it going on any given night. That night, it was Cook and Jones led a second half comeback. We got to see Duke versus Carolina in overtime, which is always a pleasure. A lot of big names in the rivalry from the last decade on either side. We had Marcus Page, Justin Jackson, Meeks, Joel Berry coming off the bench. It was Emile Jefferson still in a Duke uniform. It was Quinn Cook's last go. But it's really just maybe one that people won't remember 10, 15 years from now, even though I think they probably should. But it was a really fun basketball game.
Yeah, that was one of those games that really proved how well that Duke team could close games. Just giving it to Tyus Jones and saying, go. I think Coach K had a quote that season where he said, "Just be you." And that was one of those games he just kind of scored, I think, 9 straights or something crazy like that to end the game. I mean, there's just so many. We could go on and on. That could be a whole separate podcast. But Jake, you got something?
The last time we had a new coach introduced into the rivalry, we got the Chris Duhon layup with 6.5 seconds left, and back in 2004 when old Roy Williams first entered his hat into the ring. So who knows with Hubert's first game, good things are bound to happen. I
mean, there were a couple of years there where, with Matt Doherty, UNC was more focused. I mean, Matt Doherty literally got into fights. UNC was looking for a big change, and it brought in Roy, at the time the guy with the best coach who hadn't won a national championship. Pretty good. He did well in Chapel Hill. 3 national championships, and it just in a lot of ways, Coach K coming to Duke in the 80s and Roy coming to UNC in the early mid-2000s kind of saved the rivalry in a way, because it's only good. It's only great when both teams are rolling, right? I mean, the most memorable games are often when they're both in the top 10, both fighting for the ACC title, and that's what we got now with North Carolina's recent run. And I just think just the way that they have ran their programs, I think is really, it's fascinating to me. I mean, the differences are clear. I mean, if you can draw a line basically from Roy Williams to James Naismith, just in literally James Naismith, Fogg Allen, Dean Smith, Roy Williams and Hubert Davis, basically, that's literally the secondary break. That's literally how basketball is supposed to be played. And then Coach K, just being the guy along with Bobby Knight to just institute man-to-man motion. It's just it's just Duke UNC at its best is college basketball at its best, in my opinion at least, and I think a lot of people would agree. But I think we are burying the lead a little bit here, but let's talk about the actual game on Saturday. Duke obviously comes in ranked number 9 in the country, coming off two road wins over some teams that gave them some trouble at times. Obviously, Duke with its lowest scoring output of the year against Notre Dame on Monday. Jake and Sasha, you guys were there actually. I think Duke comes in getting closer and closer to where they were against Gonzaga and Kentucky earlier in the year. They had that COVID pause. They're still starting to get their legs back under them. And then UNC, they have played really well recently. They got an overtime win against Louisville the other night. I know a lot of people were talking about the officiating in that game, and that was a hectic game. That was a tough game to officiate. Two teams banging down low, but UNC, they've won 4 in a row after a loss. They got humiliated against Wake Forest and Miami, and at that point, people were wondering, well, is this team going to even make the tournament? So, we want to start off. We just talk about the matchups. It's gonna be a fun game. It's obviously gonna be. I think it's gonna be a close game for a long stretch of it. But Jake, what's a matchup that you're looking forward to seeing, and it's gonna have a big impact on the final result?
I'm going to have to go with, especially considering being in South Bend with Sasha the other day, getting to see Trevor Keels back for the first time since he went down against Florida State with the calf injury.
Yeah, speaking of getting legs under them, having him back is...
Big time.
Yeah.
No, and so with that, I think Trevor, along with the matchup with Caleb Love, I'm really interested to see how that played out. Those two will likely be paired up against each other, two bigger guards in the ACC, and I'm really interested to see how that plays out on the perimeter. And then the obvious kind of segue, I think, with these two is one of them going to be able to get hot? They can both shoot the lights out of the gym, but they can also be really spotty at times. Neither of them has been very efficient this year. Both are dipped well below, and I shouldn't say well below, but a couple ticks below 40% from the field on the year. And I really just think it can kind of come down to the way these two shoot on Saturday. How about you, Micah?
Yeah, as you said, North Carolina's a team that they punch it down low, and they also shoot a lot of threes. And whether that efficiency is there, that's kind of we'll see that on Saturday. Same thing for Duke, but I think going back to down low, they have their star in Armando Bacot. He's got 13 straight double-digit rebound games. He
usually has 20 rebounds too.
Yeah,
if the ball goes up, he's getting it.
He's doing some ridiculous things on the glass and scoring the ball inside, and that matchup between him and Mark Williams is going to be really interesting. Mark Williams has had a couple really, really impressive games this year. He had a handful of rebounds and blocks against Gonzaga and Chet Holmgren and Drew Timme. He was able to hold his own against those guys, but he's going up against a much bigger guy in Armando Bacot, and how he's going to be able to get those box outs, get those rebounds, score inside. Duke's going to be looking for opportunities to get him the ball, but if Bacot stifles him early, that might be out of the question. They might have to look elsewhere. Sasha?
Yeah, one matchup that I'm excited for is I think we're going to see Theo John play a little more against North Carolina since UNC's got such a tough big guy.
And Theo's got a bigger body than
yeah.
Well, Sasha, how about how well we saw Theo play
exactly.
on Monday night?
In Notre Dame, he had 9 rebounds in 14 minutes of playing time. That's he looks
high for him.
I thought that was his second best performance of the season behind NC State when he had 10 and 6, I believe. So he was great against Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen Coach K do that more often recently, rotating in Theo earlier, getting him more minutes against bigger guys. And so, Theo John he's a unit. He's huge. He's muscular. So having him up against Armando Bacot will be. It'll give Duke some size and some strength and some of that physical toughness that the coaches have said that they've wanted to see more of this season.
Jonathan?
I'm really excited to watch Leaky Black and Wendell Moore go head-to-head.
High school teammates.
Yep. Coxonville High School out in Charlotte, North Carolina. But these are two guys who have really found their roles for their teams this year. Those are very different roles. Wendell's is much more of a do-it-all role, rebound, assist, score, lock in on the defensive end. And Leaky is able to really focus in on the defensive end, and it's helped him be more efficient on the offensive end. He's shooting career highs from the field and from three-point, and he's doing it all while locking down the top scorer from the opposing team every night. He is only averaging 4 points and 4 rebounds, but his impact on that team goes a long way. I don't know how much of the game we'll see Wendell and Leaky match up against each other for, but those two guys really often dictate the way their team is going to play, and maybe not just on each other, but whichever one of those guys played better could be a big factor in the matchup.
Yeah, I mean those are all really good ones. I wanted to just to be a contrarian. I wanted to say Coach K versus Hubert, the matchup there. But if we were talking, about,
If only they were on the floor.
well, yeah, well, Hubert's he had a pretty good NBA career. Coach K was scrappy at Army. One of Bobby Knight's favorite players. So, I think we have to. I mean, we've left him out so far. Paolo Banchero. I mean, he played pretty well against Notre Dame, right? He kind of took over, right, Jake?
He did some things on the basketball court that night that really had my jaw dropped, especially at the end of the second half from both of the elbows.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the type. That's the actions that they have been trying to get him in. They love getting it to him on the elbow, and he can elevate over guys. He can take you off the dribble. He has the quickness. He has the size, the strength. I mean, he is a point forward. He's a bigger Carmelo Anthony. That's got to be the comparison. Like I've been trying to drive it home this year and like trying to convince myself. And I think I'm
better defense though.
Oh, I mean, I'm a huge Carmelo fan. Carmelo never even thought about defense, but only when he would kept playing matchups against LeBron because he just wanted to one up him. But he's become he was a good defender. I thought Paul was a good individual defender at the beginning of the year. He's become a better help defender. His rim protection has been awesome. I think he's improved. I think he's getting better. I think he's becoming he's getting to his spots easier. They're getting it to him in more, in more favorable positions. He's able to get to the hole, and I think just the way that UNC is. How are they going to cover him? I mean, based on the starting lineups, you would think Brady Manick would match up with him to start.
That's not a great.
How are they
going to Carolina?
I think Brady Manick's a really good spot up shooter, really good stretch four. He's not a very good defender. Yeah. He's not very good in pick and rolls. That's one thing that really killed them early in the year over at Mohegan Sun against Purdue and Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And that was a team, when they lost to Tennessee, that was one of the low points of the season because Tennessee the day before, I forget, some NBA scout had made the comment that Tennessee, when playing Villanova, the day before looked like a middle school team. Like just how they looked offensively. And then against North Carolina, they blew them out of the water. I mean, Kennedy Chandler just controlled the whole game and screen and roll. So they've improved defensively. They're trying to get bought into the help concept and all that. But I think I'm interested in seeing how they play Paolo. I mean, they're not really a zone heavy team, but I just man to man. I mean, they might have to throw Leaky Black on him. They might have to throw a guy like Puff Johnson, Justin McCoy, those types of guys. Just throw different bodies at him. I think you got to try to use like the same strategy that kind of what I go back to is a strategy that like teams use against. Like the Heat used this strategy against Giannis in the playoffs a couple years ago. I see Jake rolling his eyes here, but let me finish. Come on, gotta give Spo some love. Just like throwing different bodies at him, and obviously Paolo is not Giannis, the guy who just scored 50 in like Game 6 of the finals. But just like the strategy of throwing bodies at him, making him uncomfortable, giving him different looks, forcing him to not just forcing him to take jumpers because he's gonna try to overpower you, and just forcing him to take jumpers,
But I mean, can we talk about how lately he's found ways to impact the game, even when he's kind of been held scoring less than he has?
His rim protection's been way better.
Rim protection's been better. He's been better on the glass. He had 15 rebounds against Louisville. I mean, and we've started to see flashes of better playmaking than we saw earlier. He's starting to really bring up his teammates and make them better too.
Yeah, I mean I think we talked about this on a recent podcast, Sasha, with you, me, and Alex, where he's surrounded by AJ Griffin and Joey Baker, and he gets them so many open looks off his drives. And I mean, AJ gets so many open looks off of Wendell and Paolo just attacking. And Joey's gotten way better looks this year than he did last year, just because of how the team is constructed. His team attacks the basket, much more effectively than last year's team. And even 2 years ago, it's just a different way the roster's built, and it helps Joey. I think this is really beneficial for him. And just the way that Paolo has looked recently is really impressive. Jake, I know you got something.
Well, I'm gonna go on record now. I think Paulo scores like 25 on Saturday. I think he's
full agreement.
Completely in his stride right now. I mean, if we break it up between the two halves against Notre Dame, something we're seeing for him that I think is a sign that I think he already came into college as a really mature, pro-ready player. But the first half, he shot 3 of 9 from the field. It was a decent half, not great, and he just shot right through it to go 7 of 13 from the field in the second half. And part of that credit to Coach K, and I know he talked with Paulo during the game and kind of said, I'm paraphrasing, but this is a game where you shoot, and Paulo shot a lot and scored a lot of points. And I think that's going to happen again on Saturday, and a lot more for the remaining however many games are left in this regular season schedule.
Well, he really knows just how to elevate his game when he needs to. He scores 20 and a half against Gonzaga early in the season, and it could have been more if he hadn't had to leave with a cramping issue. He had 22 in his season opener against Kentucky. He can elevate himself to these big matchups. He knows when to turn it on, and he can do that because he's already such a polished player.
Yeah, He seems like he performs at his best when Duke really needs his best. Because when you're in those big time games, you need your stars. I think Evan made this comment the other day where a team takes on the characteristics of its stars, right? And Paolo has really he's playing that role to a T. And I just think he, the way Duke uses him, they put him at the 5s and with their ball handling lineup. They don't even want to call it small lineup because you can't be a small lineup when your center is 6'10", 250. But just looking at his stats recently. I have his stats here from since the Wake Forest game up to Notre Dame. So that's 7 games. He is averaging almost 19 a game, almost 10 rebounds, which his rebounds have gone up recently. He's helping Mark and Theo out on the glass, which I think is huge. He is shooting 50% from the field, and he's shooting 28% from 3, which is a little below his season average. But I think he's being more selective with his shots from outside. I think he's attacking more, which I think is good because he needs to use his frame. So, Jonathan, you got anything?
He's just been remarkably consistent, and he's been the ACC Freshman of the Week 3 times in a row now. I think that all of us here are getting a little used to the nightly Paolo go out for 20 points on a 50% shooting clip. That is not something you get. But I think Jake's right that this could be the Paolo game. We've had 2 things that are pretty close to the Paolo game. We had a brilliant half against Gonzaga, pretty awesome game against Kentucky, and he's been really consistent, pouring in points, rebounds, and assists now and opening it all up. But if we really are going to see Duke take it to another level against UNC, and that first matchup against UNC sort of indicates that we've reached that late season stage, it'd be really cool to see Paolo take it to another level, because at the end of the day, this team is only going to be as good as its best players can be. And if Paolo can really turn it on that big stage, it would be a great sign.
Last thing before we move on, I think one of his most impressive games of the year, even though they did lose, it was that Florida State game on the road. He was quiet in the first half. They were up by a handful of points, not a huge lead, but a lead nonetheless. Started off the second half ice cold. He wasn't taking shots. When they needed him in the late stages of that game, he turned it up to a level I hadn't seen from him even in that Gonzaga game. He was doing things differently in a way that I think can really open up the offense in this game on the road against a tough ACC opponent. again, North Carolina is not Florida State, but the challenges they'll bring they'll look a little similar in this game, I think.
Yeah, they were down 9 points, I believe, with a little less than 5 minutes to go, and Paulo had yet to take a shot attempt. From that point on, he hit a three-pointer, and he scored or assisted on every basket down the stretch to get them to overtime. It didn't end well, but when the ball's going through him, like Max has had a lot to say about this, that's when they're at their best.
You said he assisted on every shot. How many in a row?
He scored or assisted. Remember that three-pointer he hit to get them to score to get the run going? From then till the end of regulation, he scored or assisted on every bucket.
Is that any good?
That's
It's like a 10-0 run to get them to overtime.
Yeah, that's what a guy like him can do. So, I think we're trying to get to the prediction part of this. The people have been clamoring for our predictions. So, in one sentence for each of you, Duke wins if blank. Jake, go ahead.
Duke wins if Paulo's Paulo. That's it. I think I've said my piece on him. If he plays like he did against Notre Dame, as the great Evan Cohen said, teams take on the identity of their star. I think we're gonna look at a Duke win pretty handily here.
Micah, Duke wins if.
I think Duke just needs to bring it to him. I think that comes from taking good shots and also taking some risks, taking some threes, and really bringing it to Bacot down low. If Mark can win that matchup, that's a Duke win every time.
Sasha?
I'll be a little bit of a contrarian here. I think Duke can pull out a win so long as they play their best defensive game. We've seen that a few games this season. If they can do that and they can, shut down the perimeter and just really play their game on the defensive side, if they can sort of get it done on offense, they'll have a decent shot to win.
I think Duke wins if they can play their game. This rivalry always has a way of making itself closer than it needs to be on occasion, and Duke is the better team this year. We've seen that on multiple occasions, and there's so many storylines going into this, so much outer noise, but if Duke can walk into the Dean Dome and get the job done, there shouldn't be anything in their way.
We're part of the noise.
We are part of the noise. Block it out, Duke.
We are the noise.
The Chronicle literally is the noise. I think Duke wins if Roach and Moore take care of the ball. I think in a game like this, if you played this game 50 times, I think Duke probably wins 35 of them. But I think the way that UNC could make this a real game is if they get freebies in transition, and if Roach has been taking care of the ball terrifically over the last couple of weeks. He's really stepped up. I've been really impressed with how he's running the offense, and he's picking his spots when he wants to be aggressive, but he's setting guys up. He's been aggressive where he needs to be, where he feels like he's can really take his guy off the dribble. But if him and Moore can really take care of the ball and not give UNC any freebies, then I think that's probably what we would expect based on what he's done recently. So, Jake, you got something?
Well, I will say that is a good point, because I think Armando Bacot is going to have himself a pretty good day. He's, like Micah said, been on an absolute tear for, 12 games ago.
At least, yeah.
So,
you could say all season. He's been doing some ridiculous
12 and a
things.
half rebounds a game?
Yeah. I don't think that you're not going to bottle Bacot up. He's, I think, going to have his fingerprints all over the game. But as Levitan was saying, Duke playing at its best is significantly better than Carolina playing at its best, and Duke's at its best when Paulo's cooking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's. I guess it looks like there's some agreement here, and there will be some agreement with our score picks and our pick to win. Jake, do you want to go the moment of truth? Who are you picking to win this version of Duke UNC?
Let's go Duke 84-76. I think North Carolina sneaks in at the end, maybe in a little bit of garbage time points. I don't think the game will feel like an 8-point game.
Interesting. Okay. Micah?
I think that, everything that we've said from, backcourt play, shooting, Paulo taking over, to the matchup down low with some Theo John, Mark Williams, I think that ultimately Duke will neutralize Bacot enough and they can take a decent win at I say 78-64. I think Duke can really run away with this one. I know you're laughing at it. But
Have faith in the
wow.
rivalry, guys. My God. My prediction, 76-74. You know, no matter what we say about how good Duke is, how much North Carolina's maybe struggled this season, it's the Tobacco Road rivalry. Both teams will find a way to rise to the occasion. It'll be close. It'll be exciting.
I'm with Sasha here. 71-68 Duke. I think that this is going to be a game that goes deep into the second half. Like, I think you said, Jake, like maybe not as close as the final score indicates. Maybe it's a little closer at the end. But this North Carolina team, yes, isn't as great as we've seen in recent years. Yeah, they're not ranked, but they are 16-6. They've won 4 games in a row. They've found a way to win games, even when it's all not clicking. I think they make Duke work for the win more than a lot of us might think.
Wait, Sasha, are you calling a buzzer beater?
I'm not calling a buzzer beater. I am saying
What player?
don't turn the TV off early.
All right, fair.
There we
Fair.
go.
Well, no, I mean, if you turn the TV off early, what's the point of even turning it on? You know, I mean, come on.
Don't
Honestly,
leave the stands early to beat traffic. That's what I
that's
should
fair.
say.
Obviously, a lot of different ways I can go here. So many options. You know, the one prediction I will say before I want to give you my score pick: UNC will be winning at halftime. They will be winning at halftime. They will
so
be winning
wrong.
at halftime
I don't
because
disagree.
Caleb
I do.
Love and RJ Davis will come out aggressive. They will look to assert themselves, and they will put UNC ahead at halftime. Duke will slow the tempo down, get it to Paolo in the post. A little pick and roll, Roach, Paolo, Moore, Paolo, slow it down, get Paolo in some spots where they like. Paolo probably ends up with 25, 28 points. It's going to be one of his best games of the season, and Duke ends up winning by 11, 85-74. UNC will come out guns blazing. Do not underestimate this team. They are really talented. Like Hubert, I know Carolina fans have been upset with Hubert's rotations and some of the their performances in some of their bigger games this year, but I do think North Carolina is going to come out on fire. They're going to come out. I mean, this is a game that they really like. If they win this game, they're a lock for the tournament, right? They're Seth Davis will say Sharpie. If they win the game, they're 16-6. They're on by all intents and purposes on the bubble. I think they're going to make the tournament. I think if they beat Duke Saturday, they will absolutely make the tournament because looking at their schedule now, at Clemson, Florida State, turns out Florida State stinks, and Pittsburgh, at Virginia Tech, Louisville. That's pretty easy. Like that's not that on the schedule. So
The winner of this game is on top of the ACC.
exactly. The
Yeah,
winner of this
that's
game on
true.
top of the ACC. North Carolina's going to come ready to play. They will be winning at halftime. However, Duke will win the game.
Hey, Max, I have a question.
No,
Do you think Paulo's good? I didn't get that from that.
he's good. He's a good player. I mean, he's either the first or second pick with Jabari Smith. So if a team picks Chet Holmgren over Paolo or Jabari, wrong answer. Fire the GM.
Look, I think Carolina
agree.
is a tournament team, but I'm saying that a Duke win is a lock to be in is maybe a little much.
They need a great win They need a great win.
No,
I mean,
I'm
that's a
Max on that,
signature
yeah.
win. That's their
You
signature
need,
win.
so you need the match.
so they beat
you need-
Duke, they could lose their next 6 games and they're in the tournament.
No,
They're
that's
not
not
gonna
what
lose
I
their
that's not
next
what I
6
said. You're putting
games.
words in my mouth. I am fighting for my debate life here. Look, you need metrics, eye test, and signature wins. UNC kind of has the metrics according to our good friends at KenPom. They are currently, hold the phone. They are 37th. They're 37th. Eye test, you can tell they have great interior play with Armando. Caleb Love, when he's on, he's playing really well. He's definitely improved this year. They just don't have a signature win. Purdue, they lost. Tennessee, they lost. Kentucky was one of the most embarrassing performances I've seen by a Carolina team in a long time. That was bad. And Wake Forest and Miami.
That was short notice though, right? That was
Yeah, but they knew they were going to Vegas. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I just think North Carolina's going to play one of their better games of the season in the first half. And I just think Duke's going to establish themselves with Paolo and Wendell. I think Wendell is going to have a big game. I think Wendell. I said Paolo might have 25 points. I think Wendell might have even more. I don't know. It's going to be a big game. Those two guys, they're going to have to step up.
How has no one said the name AJ Griffin in this recording yet?
That's a good point.
I said
AJ Griffin, come on.
AJ's
AJ's gonna have a big game too.
I think AJ and Brady Manick will trade 3-pointers. at some point in the game. So might be that. You're still looking. Jake doesn't like this.
I will agree with you on the Paulo point. Some other points, not so much.
How? Okay.
I think Max is right that, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, but Duke has made a couple of teams' tournament resumes already. Like, the reason that Florida State and Miami are bubble teams right now is because they own wins over Duke, and there aren't a lot of chances for signature wins in the ACC this year. Sorry. And if North Carolina can get this win, it's a win they can't get anywhere else until the end of the season.
Yeah,
So.
I mean,
And they're going to bring it because they know that. It's Duke, and it can be their signature win for their tournament resume. So
on their home floor.
I agree.
On their home floor in Hubert Davis's first year, don't count them out.
We all picked Duke to win, so it's not like you can say I'm trying to hate on Duke right now. I literally picked them to win the game. I just think UNC is going to be UNC will be winning, or it'll be a close game at halftime. How about that? Is that fair?
I'll give you that one.
Okay.
I'll give you that.
All right. Well, that's time for us to wrap. We all got other stuff to do. We will be live from the Dean Smith Center. Our two seniors, Evan Colin and Glenn Morgenstern, will be live. They'll be holding down the fort. I believe that's Evan's second time in the Dean Dome after he went last year. So yeah, they'll bring you all the coverage from the Dean Dome, and we will obviously we'll bring you the gamer sidebar, the post game video. So make sure to tune into DukeChronicle.com for all of our coverage, and if you have Twitter, follow us on Twitter at Duke Basketball if you haven't already, and obviously check out all of our rivalry content coming out over the we've been staggering over the last couple of days. Check out the website for all of that. So if you want to just get ready for the game. So guys, thanks for tuning in, and thanks everyone for joining. Thanks guys.
Thank you, Max, for having us.
Thanks, Max.
Pleasure as always.
All right, thanks everyone for tuning in. Happy Friday.